Hi, boys and girls. Shavua Tov. I will begin with chapter 35 after Esav and Yaakov separate. So God appears to Yaakov and he tells him to go, when you separate from Esav, to go to live in Beit El and dwell there. Okay, go live in Beit El and dwell there, set up home there, and make an altar. And just like you were there when you were leaving Canaan, when you were running away from Esav, he now comes full circle, he comes back home. And Yaakov tells all his people to remove the idols, to remove the strange god, the foreign gods, and purifies yourself and change your garments. And let's go up to Beit El. We'll make an altar there, like a temple. And we'll basically celebrate Thanksgiving to God who answered me when I was in trouble and I was running away from my brother. And everybody gave their foreign gods. Now, I don't know where they got their foreign gods. We only knew of Rachel, but it looks like some of the people that were with them brought their foreign gods with them and from Lavan's house. And now that they were returning to Eretz Israel, they were getting rid of them. So they took from all the jewelry that were foreign gods, and Yaakov buries them under the tree in Shechem. Yaakov hid them under a terebinth tree, which was called Elah in Hebrew. He buries them under a terebinth tree in the city of Shechem. Okay, and they travel now. One second, let me advance the slides a little bit. And there we go. Okay. And everybody was fearing Yaakov because they heard all about how God was supporting him. And he comes to a city called Luz. Luz was the name of Beit El before. It was changed from Luz to Beit El. And he makes an altar there, and he calls the city Beit El, because God appeared to him, Beit El, the house of Lord, because God revealed himself when he fled from his brother. And now Devorah, the babysitter, the nursemaid of Rivka, dies over there, and she is buried under a alon, after a terebinth, and actually she calls it an oak tree, and they call it alon bachut, the oak tree of tears, boche. And God appears to him one more time. Now again we hear about God changing his name from Yaakov to Israel. And now God gives him the blessing of Abraham. So first, be fruitful and multiply, which means he will have the children. And he will have the land, which he gave to Abraham and Yitzchak. I will give it to you and to your children after you. And God leaves him, and Yaakov makes the altar over there, and he puts oil onto it, so it's dedicated to God. And again, he calls the place Beit El. Then we had just a little bit left to get to a place called Beit Lechem, to Efrat, here from Beit El, and they were almost at Efrat, just outside of Jerusalem. And Rachel was giving birth, and she was having a very difficult labor, and trying to encourage her, her midwife was telling her, "Oh, great, you're having a son." But she lost the battle and she died in childbirth. She calls him Ben Oni, the child of my sadness, and Jacob called the baby Binyamin, Benjamin. Rachel dies, and she is buried on the way to Efrat, and that's called Beit Lechem. And Yaakov makes a monument in the place where she is buried, and he makes his tent there beyond Migdal Eder. Vayhi bishkon Israel ba'aretz ahi, and Israel, Jacob, was in that land. And now Reuben did something that was not so nice, and he slept with Bilhah, his father's maid. Now that Rachel died, I suppose he assumed that he's allowed to. Jacob heard about it, and it doesn't say what he did, but clearly it shows displeasure. The names of the children. Okay, the children of Leah were, the firstborn is Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda. Then Rachel had children, and then the maids had children, and then we go back to Leah having Yissachar and Zvulun. So Leah had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 children. Rachel had 2, Yosef and Binyamin. Leah, her maid, also had 2, so one could say that Rachel had a total of 4. Zilpah had Gad, Asher, so she also had 2, and that's how we end up with the 12 sons. Okay, so these are the children that were born to him in Padan Aram. That's not accurate because we know that Binyamin was born later, but that's how the text says it. Yaakov comes to Yitzchak in Kiryat Arba, in Hebron. Okay, so Kiryat Arba, Hebron, where Abraham and Isaac lived. And Yitzchak lived to the age of 180. Remember the number, 180. And he died, and Esav and Yaakov buried him. I will quickly try to finish chapter 37 so that I could do it within the time of the recording. Yaakov comes back to the land of Canaan, and these are the children of Yaakov. Yosef was 17 years old. He was a shepherd, and he was kind of following his brothers, the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah, the father's wives. Notice he was checking up on the maid's children, Bilhah and Zilpah. And Yosef was bringing gossip to his father. He reported not nice things about them to Jacob. And Jacob, whose name here is Israel, loved Joseph from all of his sons. And he made for him a coat of many colors, And the brothers saw that Jacob loved him, so they hated him. And they couldn't even say anything nice to him. They couldn't speak to him peacefully. Lo yachlu dabro shalom. And now begins the story of the dreams of Joseph. So Joseph dreams, and he tells the brother what the dream was, and they hate him even more. What's the dream? We were making sheaves, bundles in the fields, and my bundle stood upright, and your bundles made a circle all around mine, and all of your bundles bowed down to my bundle. And the brothers understood right away what he meant, and they tell him off, and they said, "How dare you? Will you be king over us? Do you want to rule over us?" Namely, the bundles are a hint that we will bow down to you. They understood what they meant, and they were upset. And then he dreams another dream. And instead of realizing that his brothers are mad at him with his stupid dreams, he comes and tells them, "Behold, I have another dream. And here the sun and the moon and 11 stars are bowing down to me." Well, the sun and the moon are his father and his mother, and 11 stars are his brothers. And he told his father and he told his brothers. And Jacob told him off, and he said, "What on earth are you saying? And what is the dream that you're dreaming? Are you expecting mommy and me to come to bow down to you?" And the brothers were jealous. But Jacob remembered. Jacob kept the saying in mind, namely, he thought that maybe there is some truth. And if you think ahead to the story of Joseph in Egypt, indeed, there was a lot of truth because the brothers all came down to bow to him. And the brothers went to look after the sheep and their father's sheep in the city of Shechem. And Jacob, Vayomer Israel, Yosef says to Joseph, "You know, your brothers went to Shechem. Why don't you go out and see what's cooking? Check out how things are developing with my animals. After all, he's a farmer. He's growing sheep. He wants to know how the sheep are doing." And he says, "Check out the peace of your brothers in Shechem and let me know." And he sent him from Hebron to Shechem. And somebody met him and realized that he lost his way. And he says to him, "Joseph, Joey baby, what are you looking for? Ma tevakesh, what are you seeking?" And he says, "I'm looking for my brothers." And that word, while not in the Torah, has two meanings. He says, "I'm looking for my real brothers, brothers who act like brothers," but the text doesn't say that. So he says, "I'm looking for my brothers and where they're taking their sheep." And the man said, "They left from here, and I heard them say that they're going to a city called Dotan." They were going towards Dotan. And Joseph followed his brothers, and they saw him from far away. And before he even came close to them, they were planning to kill him. And they said one to the other, "Ah, the dreamer is coming. The dreamer is coming. And let's go kill him. We'll throw him in one of the pits, and we'll tell our father that a bad animal ate him, and we'll see what will happen with his dreams." And Reuben saw this, heard this, and he saved them. And he says, "What? We're not going to kill our own brother." So he says, "Don't spill his blood. Why don't you put him into one of the pits in the desert? There are lots of holes, old water holes, and don't harm him. Just shove him into a pit." And the plan was that when the brothers leave or when their anger subsides, he will save them. And when Joseph came to his brothers, they took off his coat of many colors, and they took him and threw him into the pit, and there was no water in the pit, so I guess it meant that he didn't drown. And 1 second, it jumped a bit. Right. And here they see a caravan of Yishmaelim. Yishmael, a caravan of camels coming from Gilad, and their camels are carrying what? Spice, balm, ladanum, going to carry it down to Egypt. So they're taking spices, nechot, tzri, valot. And Judah says to the brothers, "Hey guys, it's not right we should kill our brothers and cover his blood. Why don't we sell him to this caravan and not harm our brothers?" And then another caravan comes by of Midianites, Midianim, and they pull Joseph from the pit, and they sell Joseph to the Ishmaelim for 20 coins. Me'arat HaMachpelah was sold for 400. In Shechem, they sold the field for 100 ksita. Now, Joseph is sold for 20. And Joseph comes to Egypt, and Reuben comes back. I don't know what he saw in that pit, but he tears his garments. I don't know because he didn't see Reuben, or because he because he didn't see Joseph, or because he thought that Joseph was dead. 1 second. So he tears his garments and he says, "The child is gone. The child is not. What's going to happen to me? What am I going to tell my father?" And they took the shirt and they dipped it in blood and